All right, thanks for tuning in. It's so good to be with you. I'm excited about the topic today. Thanks for tuning in. I want to talk today about this concept of becoming anti-fragile and what this really has to do with becoming a sovereign individual, sovereign family is a truly sovereign individual is anti-fragile. So let's dive right into this. Let's start by defining what is anti-fragile. First, I did not come up with the term. It comes from, I'll tell you where I got it from. I'm not sure this is the source, but it's my source. So anyway, I read a book with the same title called Antifragile by Nassim Taleb. And again, I'm not sure he coined the phrase, but that's where I learned it from. So I'm going to give him credit for that, and I'll kind of explain the author and explain the premise of the book. But the author himself comes from a background of trading. He was a hedge fund manager, an investment portfolio manager, traded options, kind of just big stock market trader guy. And so he put a lot of thought and effort into analyzing downside and risk and when to get in and out of the markets type of thing. And so he writes this book. That's his background. A lot of the book talks about people who get in a state of comfort or confidence. They try some kind of strategy out in the stock market and it works, and they try it again and it works again. They try it a third time, works again, and so they kind of develop confirmation bias. But they're not prepared for, basically they could be following a sound strategy, or they could just be getting lucky, and then their brain is trying to give themselves credit for that, right? By saying, "Oh, this isn't luck; it's my intellect, right? I'm following XYZ strategy, and that's why this is working." And so, but it's really hard to tell, right? It's hard to tell if you're just lucky or if you're actually smart until something shifts in the marketplace, right? Until COVID hits, or until the real estate market crashes or whatever, right? It's kind of hard to tell until your assumptions are challenged, or something you've never seen before happens. So that's kind of the premise of the book. It's really heavily geared towards financial risk and things like that. But I want to take this topic of being anti-fragile and I want to apply it to a broader definition outside of a financial setting. Okay, I want to apply this to a person's life and truly becoming an anti-fragile individual and an anti-fragile family. All right, so again, what does anti-fragile mean? What's the definition of it? Well, it's kind of like resilient, but it's different. So resilient typically is a positive term. Usually it's someone who can change their behavior when something disappointing happens, right? It's they can kind of keep going from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Is one person's definition of resiliency, and it's a good thing, but it's different from anti-fragile. Anti-fragile really means that you have you've gotten yourself and your family to a place, a state where you are prepared and ready to handle anything that you've encountered before. So everyone listening to this has gone through the COVID pandemic, right? And so an anti-fragile family, an individual would be in a financial and emotional state with the skills to certainly handle another pandemic, right? Because it's happened in your lifetime, so you can look back and say, all right, I've learned from this thing. I've learned skills and developed systems to kind of handle this if another COVID happens. And maybe some of the listeners are old enough to remember the stock market crashing just after the financial crash of 2008, 2009. So that's another example. It's in our lifetime that happened, and there was a recession following that. And so, it's basically an anti-fragile family certainly has learned from all the things that they've experienced, and so they can handle it again. But it doesn't just stop there. They have developed systems in place that help them anticipate challenges that have not yet occurred in their lifetime, and they're ready for those challenges. And that's truly what anti-fragile means. Let me kind of unpackage that a little bit more and give an example that you probably understand at a deeper level. And I know I've shared this before, but I'm going to share it again in this context because I think it'll help make sense. So when the human body itself is a really good example of something that's anti-fragile. And you can see this when you exercise. Let's say you're trying to build strength. And so you go to the gym, and let's say you're going to bench press 150 pounds. And maybe for you, that's like the max you've ever done. And so the moment that you do, like you're training, you're practicing, you're kind of working your way up, and then you put on 150 pounds on the barbell, and then you bench press that. Boom. And you're feeling good because that's your 1 rep max, and you're like, yay, this is my new 1 rep max. And you go home and you rest and recover. And what's happening is your muscles, they've gone through micro tears. To hit a new 1 rep max is like they've gone through micro tears. And so when you go home and rest and recover, get some good nutrition, make sure you sleep. Well, your brain produces certain hormones during the sleep cycle that help repair muscle tissue and repair other parts of your body for rest and recovery, and it uses those hormones in conjunction with good nutrients from good food, real food, right? And it builds your body back up. And so an interesting thing happens is that your body doesn't, in that environment of good sleep, good food, in rest and recovery, it doesn't just repair the muscle to prepare, just to be able to lift 150 pounds again on a bench press. No, it actually repairs it in anticipation of lifting 155 pounds. And so the human body is a great example of being anti-fragile because it's never been exposed to bench pressing 155 pounds. And again, I'm just using this example. Maybe you actually bench like 400 pounds or something. So kudos to you. Just humor me for this example. But like in this example, the human body, this person's body, has never before seen anything above 150 pounds, but yet it's already getting to work anticipating needing to lift 155 pounds. Okay? You with me? So the human body is this excellent example of what it means to be anti-fragile. In the same way, like us as a person or a family, it's like, all right, hopefully at bare minimum, we're always learning from the past. Hopefully we've, at this point, said, okay, if like another global pandemic happens, like we know how to shift and adjust and where to get real information from and where to, how to protect ourselves from, crazy people who are going hysterical, as well as like actual protecting ourselves from actual, disease, right? And where do we get our food from, and how do we make our money? How do we, basically, like hopefully you've learned from this past experience. And so if another pandemic happens, it's like, obviously you're not hoping for that, but it's not like this crazy stressful thing for you because you've done it. Okay? You're listening to this podcast, you have survived the pandemic so far. And hopefully it's not just that you've merely survived, hopefully you've learned to thrive, right? You've pivoted in different ways, and so you learn how to maintain human connections, you learn how to form a network, you learn how to make money in different ways, you learn how to save money, travel, experience different things, you learn how to find joy even in the midst of all this hysteria. Okay, like hopefully you've learned all those skills. And that I'm just using this shared example that we all share, right? The pandemic. But in your own life, like you've had experiences I haven't had. You've experienced loss or challenges or surprises or disappointments in ways that I never have. And so I keep pointing to this kind of shared example of the pandemic, but I really mean like every piece of your life experience you've learned from, like the challenges, but also the joys, like, and so hopefully you've at very least, if any of those things happen again that you've experienced, you have the systems, tools, emotional maturity to handle them and to thrive and not be taken off guard, okay? But my message goes a little bit further today, and that says there will be things that come that you have not seen before, challenges that you have not had, disappointments you've not experienced. And some of those have been things that other people that are close to you have experienced. And so it's kind of like, it's new to you, but not like so crazy new. It's like, other people that have gone through a similar thing, so that you kind of know where to like search for answers and things like that if something happens. But I also suggest to you that there will be things that happen to you that you don't know anyone who anything relatively, like anything in that ballpark has happened before. And I don't know what those things are. You don't know what those things are. So does that mean that we should just sit and stew and develop anxiety about that? I hope not. A true sovereign individual in a sovereign family won't and doesn't, because they know that there are things on the horizon that they don't know. They don't know what it's going to feel like. They don't know what it's going to be like. They don't even know what it is. But yet they've developed, because of what already has happened to them, they've developed systems and tools that help them, totally thrive during any of the past events that were to repeat themselves. But the same tools and strategies and strengths and skills they've prepared in such a way that they can handle anything else in the future with, they can thrive through whatever it is, even though it's never happened to them before. You with me? Like, there's kind of if you meet someone who's truly sovereign individual and family, there's something about them that's kind of like a grittiness to them. There's also a joy. Like, if they're truly sovereign, they're free from unnecessary anxiety. They feel joy. They're in the world. They love their life. They love the experience. And they acknowledge and honor things that are hard and not fun, but they love it. So that, again, a lot of this podcast, and we already have, and I still do, we'll talk about specific strategies on like how do you position your finances, or how do you make more money, or how do you strategize to keep more money, and talk about things like sheltering and tax and all this kind of stuff. Like we talk about that stuff, okay? But and that's important stuff. And there's going to be guests that come on that I still talk with and we do interviews with and things like that. So all that stuff is cool and important, but I can't emphasize it enough that the episodes where I'm talking about your own skills just as a human, and not necessarily strategies of like money and things like that. Like, that's all important, but again, like who you are, who you have become matters so much more than strategies. Your mental toughness, your grittiness, your your like whatever you want to call it, your gumption, your drive, like that matters so much more. If you in general have the view that everything is figure outable, then you'll be great. You'll be all right. Okay. So this morning, kind of along a similar thread, Katie asked me this interesting question, which was, she said, Steve, what do you think are the dangers of comfort? Whew, I love that question. That was really good. I've thought about that, and I think there's really four dangers I see. I'm sure there's more. I'm just like, these are kind of like the first four that come to my mind. And that is, if you've chased comfort your whole life, and that's kind of become the quest, is like a comfortable life, then there's four things that I think will happen that are dangerous. One is your body's going to get soft. Another is your mind is going to get soft. Another is you're going to have a reduced impact, like a sphere of influence. And the fourth is a reduced readiness. So I want to kind of briefly dive a little bit deeper into each of those things. But before I do, let me just say, like, we were in a spot, 2.5 years ago, where we were kind of dissatisfied with, we had a high-paying job. We kind of were living what we thought was the American dream, right? Like, go to college, get a high-paying job, live in the suburbs, have kids, raise kids, just like kind of chug away, go through life. But we realized, and that we were starting to feel dissatisfied with certain things. And when we kind of dug into it, we realized that so much of our life was about seeking comfort. That was like the quest. And the more I became aware of it and then observed it in myself and then took a look around me, I realized that was the message. A lot of people, I don't know about most, but like a lot of people, that's their quest, right? It's like, why are you working the job that you have? Why are you fighting for a promotion, to do this thing? And some, and I would call them the unicorns, like some actually derive, they've put themselves into a position where they enjoy the work for the work's sake. They actually like what they are doing, and they like the people they're doing it with. But the majority of people aren't like that. It's like you need to pay the bills, and you want more money because you want just more things. I don't know. You want more freedom or whatnot. But like a lot of us in that time, a lot of people that who I was at that time, and a lot of people we were currently associated with, or back then, it was like comfort was the quest. It's like you're kind of like, I want to make this. I want this number in my bank account so that I can whatever follows that statement. I can finally XYZ thing. It usually was to just bring life more comfort. Okay, like we have a house that has like an awesome air conditioning system, so that like I am not feeling the discomfort of like the swings in my natural environment, right? Like I can always be comfortable in my house. Or I want a nice phone so that it like works really well. Or I want a nice car so that like I don't have to fix it. Or I want enough money to pay someone else to fix my stuff. So it's like and by the way, I understand like kind of like making your life efficient, so like you outsource like low value things. Like that's not the message that I'm giving. I'm just saying, like, you say, well, like why do you want more money? And usually it's like the answer is like, well, I can finally not have to worry about this or this, and usually those things just kind of like make life more comfortable. And again, none of it is wrong or bad in and of itself. It's just that I didn't realize, and I think a lot of people don't realize, that the thing you're really chasing is comfort. It's not actually freedom. Like you think you're chasing freedom. You think you're like, well, I'm trying to make more money so I can be free, right? I just need this number in my bank account so I can be free. But if you kind of dig into it, you realize like you're chasing comfort, and that's not freedom. Again, I have to use this caveat to say, like, people who are sovereign, people who are free, it's okay to put things in your life that make you comfortable. It's okay to have like a nice house and a nice car and like help, like hire out help, someone to take care of your yard, or like a cleaning service to clean your house or whatever. Like that's fine. It's not like a bad thing. I'm saying there is a danger in those comforts, and if you're not aware of the danger, then the four things that I mentioned before that I kind of want to talk a little bit more about is you're kind of destined to, be like fall into this trap in these four areas of your life. Okay, so let's dive into that. If you're chasing comfort, then the first danger I mentioned was a soft body. Like, it's just the case, right? We have like, if you're not careful, like having a lot of like more money, you start to feel more confident to like eat out more, or eat more foods that are rich, and those sit heavier in your body, or you don't feel, or maybe you're not working a manual labor job, right? And so like day in, day out, like maybe early in your career or something. And this was the case for me, right? Like even when I graduated college, like I had a high paying job, but I was in Wyoming and I was, starting compressors in the middle of the wintertime. And so I'd get a call out. I had to go drive out to a compressor station that went down, and it's like 40 below, freezing cold. I have like all this gear on to keep me warm, and the wind's blowing. It's just cutting right through that. And then my truck gets stuck in the snow, and so like I'm fighting for hours to dig myself out, and only to just like drive a little bit further down this like in the middle of the nowhere Wyoming road just to get stuck, and stuck again, and you're digging yourself out. And so I remember in that time packing two full lunches that were each lunch in and of itself were generous for like one human being, one adult man. And I would just burn through that food. I was burning so many calories because my job, I was out in the elements, I was freezing, and then once I got to the location, now I have to like get big pipes and I like turn these pipes and lift this thing and do this and that. And so like my job was hard, and it was also mentally taxing because it was an engineering job, and so I had to, calculate and design things. But like I'm also out there like turning wrenches and slinging pipe, and so that's like early career, right? And then you kind of work up to a spot where you're kind of like, that's not. I've earned my stripes. I don't need to do this anymore. So you kind of go into an office, and now you're like focused more on design, and then later you're even in the C-suite and you're focused on strategy, and so then you're just doing a lot of networking events and whatever, right? It's like life has become more comfortable. You're no longer the person on the low end of the totem pole that's like slinging pipe. Okay, so if that's happened to, like as that happens, as you gain more comfort in your work environment, if you're not careful, your body's going to get soft. So you have to supplement that by like going to the gym and doing something challenging for your body. Like you have to build in intentional like challenges to your body so that it's okay to like work your way up a corporate ladder and not have to do like the hard stuff. But if you don't replace it with like a challenge that you choose, like doing a triathlon, Ironman, Spartan race, just simply working out at a gym, then you're in danger of your body getting soft. And then the second one is soft mind. Okay, so like if like when you're young, early career, and this is the same thing with like young parents, young dads, young moms. Like you're kind of like fighting for relevance, you're like in a career, you're trying to make a name for yourself. So you're hungry. You're reading all the stuff, you're learning, you're talking to experts, you find your mentors, and like you're hungry. Your mind is sharp because like it has to be sharp. Like you're trying to get ahead. And as a new parent, right, you're like, it's all new. You're like trying to read good books about parenting and talking to people who know more than you do, and you're like visiting with doctors and pediatricians, and you're like trying to figure this whole thing out and trying to stay relevant, and you're getting together with other like parents at the park or like different things because you're all trying to, I don't know, you're sharp, But then as things get older and your kids get old enough to babysit the younger kids, and then things happen, it's okay. Like it's great to like have more comforts, but if you're not at that point, like pushing yourself still, like creating the challenge for yourself to keep reading, to keep discovering, to keep pushing, to keep caring about solving another problem, then you're at risk to have a soft mind, and just like a mind that has lost the art of learning, it like kind of forgets, And the third thing, right, is reduce impact. So, like, if you have all the comforts that you need, you start to not, I don't know, maybe you start to not feel so generous and serve people. Maybe you only serve people with money, right? Like you're just donating money or something like that, but you're not actually connecting with humans. And so that's a reduction in impact. So like your influence, your influence is either growing or it's shrinking. There's nothing in between. So if you have all the things that you want in the world, and you don't, in that state of comfort, you don't intentionally get out of your comfort zone to still mentor somebody, like turn back around and say, who's like 10 years behind me on this? Like, I'm going to go mentor them and go out of my way to build a friendship, or I'm going to take up public speaking. I'm going to get into a speaking circuit, or I'm going to, at very least, like post my true thoughts and feelings on social media and not be like a silent person. Like, anyway, whatever it is, whatever your platform is, but like finding a way, like, even though you have everything you want and need, it's like don't retreat into the shadows. Still challenge yourself. And then the last thing, right, is a reduced readiness. I think that goes without saying. Like if you're just enjoying the comforts, and then another challenge, like some other financial thing or socioeconomic thing happens and it kind of like rocks your world, you're not gonna be ready. You're not gonna have the body, the stamina to figure things out. You're not gonna have the mind ready to like go learn a whole bunch of new stuff. You're gonna have the influence and network of people who you can reach out to quickly to be like, hey, this is happening to me. Is it happening to you too? Like, what do we do about this? Like you just won't be ready. So I wanted to share, like, all that stuff kind of wraps up into this concept of becoming anti-fragile. Okay, it's totally fine. And by the way, like, we aspire to like amounts of wealth that have never been seen in my family before, and we're talking millions and millions of dollars. Like that's in our aspirations, and so obviously if we achieve that, like we will have a lot of comfort in our life, and but I don't think desiring comforts is a bad thing, and that's not the message here. What I'm really saying is that as your life gets more comfortable, a truly sovereign individual doesn't let those comforts kind of lull them into this state of passive existence. They if you look at a truly sovereign individual, they're still pushing, they're still striving, they're still trying to solve another problem. And for someone who's not a sovereign individual, someone who it hasn't reached out, oftentimes those people look at them and say, gosh, they have enough money, like why don't they just give it a rest? Or they have enough followers on social media, like why are they still trying to get more? Why this or why that? Like you look as an outsider, you look at them and you're like, I don't understand. Like you have way more money than you need. You have way more followers than you could ever need. You have way more, like you're already ripped. Like why do you feel the need to like go compete at this higher level? Well, I can tell you 100%. Well, there's probably some of them that like are driven by pride. Right? I'm sure that exists, right? It's like, I got $100 million, but that guy has $1 billion and I can't let him beat me or whatever. It's like some people, I'm sure, have a complex, but there's a lot of them, and even like truly sovereign individuals who aren't like, crazy billionaires or something. Like even the ones that you're sovereign, but you have what you need, Like I've met sovereign individuals in other countries that, just they have like $100,000 to their name or something, and that's plenty for like where they're living and whatnot. But even those people, part of what makes them sovereign is that they're still pushing. They're still like in their state of comfort. They're still finding ways to get uncomfortable. They're still finding ways to expand their influence. They're still finding ways to serve. Not because they need any more money, or for any other reason other than they know that they want to be anti-fragile. They know that they want to be ready for anything. They know that they want to be in the best physical condition they possibly could be, in the sharpest mind they possibly could have. So that's if you're not already on that path to mastery, that's my invitation to you today. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this was a positive return of your attention, and we'll catch you soon.